And we should be live. So we should be live just now. I'm just gonna give it a minute until I can see that you guys are actually here. Hi Herbie. Hi again Emma. Welcome everyone that just joined. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me properly. Emma, I've missed it. What was it? I've missed what happened in the chat as I was starting the live. If any of you were completely new to me, if you've just completely randomly clicked on that video, if you're watching a replay in the next few days, feel free to skip the next 10 minutes. We've got 10 minutes to get to know each other. We're just waiting for everyone to connect, and then we'll start the actual walking tour. You can see and hear me well. Perfect. Thank you, Tish. So we've got about 10 minutes to go. And we are in Soho. Well, at the border of Soho here. And it is nearly 9 p.m. UK time. Oh, you'd call her Tish the fish. Okay, that's a good name. Hi Matthew, welcome. So we've got, let me check, we've got exactly 7 minutes to go. Welcome everyone that just joined. If any of you were completely new to me, welcome along. It's always amazing to have a few new names. Let us know in the chat if you happen to be new. And Michaela is here. Welcome Michaela. And Pauline is here. Hi Laurie, nice to see you here. And Michelle, welcome Michelle. And Linda is here. You cancelled your dinner plans to stay with me. What an honor. Don't tell them. And Mark is here. Welcome, Mark. Hi, Catherine. And welcome everyone that I already saw in the chat. Hi, Trish. Nice to see you here. And Chas is here. Welcome. So we've got about 8 minutes, I think, 8 minutes to go. You cancelled sleeping. Fair enough, that's good as well. Who needs food? You can still have a snack watching me at the same time. Let me see how long we've got. 6 minutes to go. 6 minutes. So if any of you are watching this on replay in the next few days, months, years, you might well skip the next 6 minutes. Hi Mitzi, welcome. You put down your chocolate. Fair enough, that's good. That's a good sign of commitment. So we've got 5 minutes to go. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. Let me give you a glimpse of the view already. I'm in front of the Palladium Theatre.
Good night. Have a safe trip.
It's fairly quiet on the fairly busy, on the streets tonight. A lot of people doing Christmas shopping and on Christmas parties and all that. Your power is turning off, Pisas. Well, sorry if you missed the end of the tour. You need some chocolates. Oh, I think that could be sorted. What's playing? Tish is asking. Playing what? Do you mean music? Is there any music? I don't hear any music. got a beautiful tree here. So again, if any of you were completely new to me, let us know in the chat. We still have 4 minutes to get to know each other before we officially start. You going to Five Guys for your dinner? No, that's international. You should go somewhere a bit more British. Although you've been here for a few days now, you probably had a lot of British food already. Oh, it's Emma singing, okay. That explains it. Right, let's see what time it is. 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes. I hope all those people on the streets won't influence the signal too much, but we've not had any problems in this area before, so we should be all good. Let me actually go to wherever I wanted to start from, because I somehow ended up in the smoking area. I think everyone is just out of the theater for a cigarette, so I suddenly couldn't breathe. There we go. We can breathe over here. Oh, you went to the Kingston Market. Did you like that, Michaela? Perhaps you need a minder. I thought you said perhaps you need a murder. I was like, that's a bit strong. So we've got about 2 minutes to go, I think. 1 minute. Who doesn't need a good murder? Well, stories better than real ones. Although sometimes you don't even know about the real ones. I discovered a couple of weeks ago that my dad's cousin, first cousin, was stabbed in Nantes in the 80s. They never found the murderer. I never knew. And my dad knows I care about true crime. Never did he tell me I had a murder mystery in my family. But I think it was a different time. I think that generation, they're kind of hiding away the dark stuff. Anyway, what time it is? It is 9 p.m. UK time. So welcome, guys. Welcome to Soho. It is officially time to start. It's 9 p.m. in the UK. Welcome. Most of you know me already, but if any of you were completely new to me, I'm Natalie. And without further ado, let's go. Let's go for a little walk into Soho. So tonight we'll explore areas I'm sure you've seen before, whether it is in person or on TV or on virtual tours or whatever. But hopefully I'll be able to tell you little snippets of history that you might not know, most of it being dark history. And let's flip around the camera and let's go. Right, so we are now on Argyle Street, named after the Duke of Argyle. And this is Little Argyle Street. The street leads into Regent Street, so the street at the back there, that's Regent Street. And at the corner there, in Victorian times, there used to be a place called the Argyle Rooms. That was a concert hall, really, full of prostitutes at the time. Well, at the beginning of the 19th century it was. And there's an interesting story in there. Apparently there was a lady one day that was in the audience, and she had like a fit, you know, almost looking like an epileptic fit. And she couldn't speak or anything. She had to be taken out. She was taken home in a horse carriage. She was with her partner, and she was like frozen. She couldn't speak or anything. And eventually, when she was able to speak again, she explained to her partner what had happened. She had some kind of a sighting. She had seen her friend dead on like the beach area on a very empty beach area, with some kind of fabric tangled around his neck and covering his face, and the body was naked. It must have been a friend she knew quite well to be able to know it was her friend when the face was covered by some kind of fabric. But anyway, her boyfriend was there to reconfort her and to tell her that her friend must be fine, nothing must have happened, it was just some kind of a bad dream, and that was it. The next morning she read the newspaper and she read that there had been a shipwreck in the Solent close to Southampton, and her friend had passed, he drowned. So she had some kind of a huge premonition as she was in the concert hall. So interesting story. Now this is the beautiful Palladium Theatre. I've actually never been inside. I really should. It's time to go back to see Robin Hood. Looks like a pantomime. Should I try to sneak in? I like to go inside. To be honest, I love the theatres, but I often prefer small productions because I prefer small little rooms. I never see anything when I get those cheap tickets at the back. Anyway, the Palladium as well, it is haunted, would you believe? The ghost story here is in the staircases. They have staircases at the back. Some claim that the staircases are older than the building. Some claim that they would have already been there at the time when the Duke of Argyll in the 1700s had a home on this site. But apparently, you okay there?
You live streaming the building?
Oh no, I'm just going on the street, so I'm off.
Because I noticed you at the start, I was just making sure everything was okay. We've got to check because of the theatre.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just streaming, but not the building in particular. I'm off actually. Yeah, cool. No worries. So the security of the Palladium coming to check on me for some reason, so apparently there were quite a few sightings of a lady with a crinoline dress in the staircases. We don't know who the ghost might be, but there have been a few sightings. There was even a BBC show where they interviewed one of the bouncers on the ghost story, and he said he had seen some lady with a crinoline in the same staircase. And we don't know who that might be. There are a few contenders, but some people say it might be Miss Shyburn. She was allegedly she would have been the mistress of a Duke of Argyll at the time. We don't know why she would be hunting the building, but maybe. When I say the Duke of Argyll, some of you might think of the BBC series we had a couple of years ago with Claire Foy and all that. Not the same Duke of Argyll. That show, I think it was Great British Scandal. That was a different Duke of the 60s. Today we're talking about the one about the beginning of the 1700s. Anyway, let me show you the beautiful Liberty. So this is a beautiful department store with a mock Tudor facade. They're not as old as it looks. It's actually Victorian. Well, the facade, I think it's actually the beginning of the 20th century. It's a lovely shop. Beautiful, but not too pretentious. You know, it's not. I mean, you've got some fancy item, but it's not ridiculously expensive either. The way it's been designed, it's quite cool. When you go in, it's almost like if you were walking in somebody's living room almost. And the decor are quite cool. The gentleman that runs it is an American. Is quite good at what he does. They've got a lot of big brands, of course, and classic products, but they also every year in I think it's in June, they have an open day when pretty much anyone can come and pitch their product. You don't have to be in the fashion industry, you don't have to be already in any industry. If you have an idea of a product, you can come and pitch it. I did watch a documentary about it a few years back. For example, that very day, there was a lady from East London. She had managed to create a nail varnish that smelled good. So a nail varnish that was perfumed. And straight away, the big boss was like, "Yep, I want this. This is fresh. This is new. Never seen this before. Let's have it." So, sorry. So they've got some interesting, unique projects as well. We are at the moment on Great Marlborough Street. Nothing to do with the cigarettes. It is after the Duke, the first Duke of Marlborough, John Churchill. Same family as Winston Churchill. He was, well, actually, his dad was called Winston as well. He was the husband of Sarah Churchill. You might have heard of her in some of my tours. She was, we believe, she was the mistress of Queen Anne. You know, Queen Anne at the beginning of the 1700s might have had a couple of lesbian relationships. I don't like to speculate too much about the sex lives of our monarchs of the past, but we've got some good reasons to believe that Sarah Churchill was having an affair with the Queen. And that's probably why her husband got a dukedom. I mean, he was a great British commander, but the Queen probably just gave him a dukedom so Sarah could be a duchess. You might have seen the movie The Favourites. It's the story of Sarah Churchill. Magistrate Court. It's quite cool inside. They kept some of the items that would have been in the Crown Court. Now let's pan this camera around to take a look at the beautiful Carnaby Street. The decorations are quite original this year. They always have the most original decos on Carnaby Street. You loved Olivia Colman in that? Yeah, I always love her. I think she's brilliant. But yeah, cool movie and quite funny. Although the subject matter is, I mean, you know, Queen Anne's life was quite tragic. You know, with all the health conditions and the lost babies and all that. But still a quite funny movie. Anyway, Carnaby Street. So this year, I think it's called Light On.
Just think about your mood.
It's a very, very basic name, the deco. I think it's called Light On. Oh, in the light. Oh, I forgot. But it's just blocks of lights. Why not? It's not very Christmassy, but it's often the case with Carnaby Street. They often do some very original lights that are not necessarily very Christmassy. Hi, Grace, and welcome everyone that just joined. So today, of course, Carnaby Street is very clean and nice, but tonight we're jumping back into Victorian times. Yeah, it's very minimalist this year, yeah. So back in the day, you know, if we go back to the beginning of the 19th century, that was the beginning of urbanization as we know it today, but you still had a lot of animals on the streets. It's quite hard to imagine today, but you had a lot of people living cramped all together in those little streets. But they'll still have cows, pigs, chicken. Karl Marx actually lived here in Soho, and he had He had chickens, would you believe? And he lived on the top floor as well. And you didn't have the sewage system yet. So the streets were absolutely disgusting. You had all the human waste, animal waste. Well, people had those cesspits, of course, but they didn't. They had to be emptied every so often. You had the night. So actually a fairly dangerous job because you could slip, on the human waste, and you could fall, and you could drown. There was a shitty way to die, literally. Of Roger the Racker that literally drowned in the poo in the 1400s. So quite a disgusting area, really. And so the streets would be filthy. You had some interesting snacks as well. The penny licks. Let me show you a picture of a penny lick. It's literally just a little cupette, like a tiny little glass, where you'd have a little bit of ice cream from a street vendor on the streets. They'll cost you a penny. You'd lick it, so you'd have your little dose of ice cream. Then you'll give it back to the vendor, and then he'll serve the next person for a penny. They didn't have running water anyway. I mean, they had nowhere to wash it anyway. So not very COVID friendly. And would you believe those were not actually illegal until 1898? So perfect ground for an epidemic, really. On this side here, you've got Kingly Court. It's a little food court. It's quite nice, but we don't have any signal inside, so we're not gonna go down this way. Let's just say bye to Carnaby Street and let's go and take a look at this beautiful mural. So this is called The Spirit of Soho. It's from, I think it's 1990 that they did the mural. It represents hundreds of people that lived or worked in Soho. So you might be able to see it's the dress. So it's a lady opening her dress to all those characters. Because Soho really is known for sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But you have quite a few very famous people that lived here. I'll show you. Excuse my finger, but this is John Bird. That's the guy that invented the television, a Scottish engineer that happened here in Soho on top of Bar Italia. The guy in the yellow vest, this is Mozart. He also lived in Soho, actually just 20 meters from John Bird. Not at the same period, of course. The gentleman with the book that says DK, this is Karl Marx. And the gentleman in the red, it's Casanova, with his mistress, Teresa. Casanova, he allegedly made love to 132 individuals, because they were not all women. There were a few exceptions. Let me show you Shaida walking before we go. So this is a lady that walks. It's art. It's by an artist called Julian Hoppe. She just walks and walks and walks and walks and walks. Anyway, Casanova, the Lady Teresa, when on the hour, they used to move, but I've not seen them move forever, apart from Casanova blowing a kiss. Karl Marx used to lift up a can of Coca-Cola, a bottle of Coca-Cola, but and Teresa, she winks at Casanova on the hour. But I've never seen the Coca-Cola, I've only seen the blowing a kiss on the winks. Teresa, she was an interesting character. Well, I say she. When they met, she was allegedly what they call the castrato. You know, there were those young boys that they had literally castrated for them to keep their voice, to be a singer. And Casanova was very interested by that castrato singer, and they started to date. And then he realized that she was an imposter. She was actually born a woman. She was not castrato. Anyway, back to the epidemics. We are now on the Broadwick Street. It used to be called Broad Street. When you have something quite terrible happening somewhere, they often change the name. And this very street is known for a horrible epidemic of cholera in the 1850s. Cholera was a terrible disease, very violent. You could be fine at breakfast and dead at night. It could be that quick. Some people survived, but many died. You'd have on this street at the time, you had 39 homes, 36 were contaminated by the disease. And it would start with a little grumbling in your stomach, and you'd actually die of dehydration because you'd vomit on poo so much. And you knew it was the end, or you knew you were on your last leg when you started to have rice water stools. I'm not sure I need to explain that one, but I will anyway. It's basically when you start pooping out water with little debris looking like the size of rice. And the cholera here was horrible, and people at the time, they had no clue really. They believed in the miasma theory. They believed that you breathed in the disease by the smells. That was a theory they had for many years, and they were absolutely convinced. To be honest, in Victorian times, they already had some signs and almost proofs that the miasma theory was not correct. Because, if indeed you smelt, you breathed in the disease by the smells, the night soul man, the man that was emptying the cesspits on those chamber pots and everything, he should be the first one to die. Not the case. So there was a young, today we'll call him an epidemiologist, but at the time, that term is a bit anachronistic. At the time, he would have called himself a physician, Jon Snow. Not the Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, of course. Jon Snow, the young doctor, he was convinced that cholera was waterborne. He did not believe in the miasma theory, and he wanted to prove it. Now, a great epidemiologist today, what they do is, not only do they look at the cases, but they look at the exceptions, the oddities. And Jon Snow very bravely came and knocked at all the doors on this street. People that were contaminated, people that were not. He mapped everything. And there used to be a brewery on this side called the Lion Brewery. He was intrigued because people at the brewery were not contaminated by cholera. So he knocked at the door and he was like, "Where do you get your water from, your drinking water?" And guys at the brewery, they were like, "We don't drink water. Why would we? We have free beer." Interesting. Then he went a bit further down, where they had a workhouse. We talked about the Victorian workhouses before in some of my tours. So they were the accommodations for the very, very poor. And the ladies at the workhouse, none of them had been contaminated. So he went and asked, he was like, "Where do you get your water from?" They said, "We have our own pump." Interesting. There was also a lady in Highgate that had been contaminated, so she was far away from Soho. And Highgate was actually very well known for its good waters, because that's coming from the source, they had good water there. The lady was already dead, I think, but he went to ask the family, where did she get her water from? It turned out that she used to live in Soho, and she was very fond of the taste of the water from that little pump over here. At the time, different pumps would have a different taste because of the different bacteria and debris in the water. So the lady used to love this little pump, and her family was actually getting the water from here to bring it into Highgate. Interesting. Snow also found the case of a few boys that were contaminated that did not live in Soho. But it turned out that they would walk through here on their way home from school, and they used to drink some water from here. And Snow was now convinced that this little water pump, it's a replica by the way, it's not the original, but that this little pump was the reason that the disease would come from the water. And he actually got the sanitary board to agree to remove the handle so they couldn't use the pump anymore. Would you believe the epidemic stopped? So he was right. He had proven it. It still took many years for people to believe him. People were so convinced of the miasma theory. Even some very influential people like Florence Nightingale and stuff. But yeah, very good epidemiologist. And now he's got a pub named after himself. He probably would have hated it because he was a teetotaler. He never drank at all. He was, hi Sam, welcome everyone that just joined. He was also an interesting doctor, even outside of the epidemics. He did a lot of work on anesthetics. He worked, because at the time, anesthetics were like a shot of whiskey, maybe a bit of cocaine. Queen Victoria used to take cocaine when she had painful periods and stuff. And allegedly cannabis oils as well. But yeah, so he was experimenting with anesthetics and chloroform, and he actually treated Queen Victoria when she gave birth to help with the pain with chloroform. So very interesting and talented doctor. Hi Tina, thank you. Now, so that was the pub, by the way, the John Snow. It used to be called the Newcastle upon Tyne. That's quite ironic because actually cholera came from Newcastle. Well, it came from India, we believe, but it came through the port of Gateshead in Newcastle. Snow actually used to work in a little mining town in Killingworth. That's a town that was devastated by cholera a few years earlier, ironically called Killingworth. And so he had already experienced cholera, so he knew exactly what he was dealing with. Anyway, let's go towards Golden Square to talk about the plague. So we're going back another 200 years. We had quite a few, we had different epidemics of plagues, and to be honest, they were often treated pretty much the same. But for this particular example, let's go back to the bubonic plague of 1665. At the time when plague was coming into the borough, you'd knew, because they had what they called the bills of mortality. So you'd pick up the bill, you'd buy it for a penny from the parish, and you could read whatever people died out of. Some people would die from anything at the time, even teeth. Even teeth could be the cause of a death. This is a cool little pub, the old coffee house, 1772, I think it dates back to. At the time, the coffee houses, they have changed a lot, the coffee houses. In the 18th century, there were places with alcohol as well, and often prostitutes above it. In the 19th century, there were more places for the poor to come and have a cheap, warm dinner. Those poor Victorians that didn't have a kitchen at home. And in the 19th century, there were no more alcohol in the coffee houses. They were more like a canteen for the poor. Anyway, back to the plague. So yeah, they had those bills of mortality. So when there was a case of plague, they knew it straight away. The first thing they do was to close the taverns. Quite similar to what we did with COVID, of course. Then Well, the next thing they did was very sad and very silly. They didn't know where the disease was coming from. You know, they just didn't know. They blamed their animals. So they actually killed in London 80,000 cats and 40,000 dogs, which is very sad for the animals, of course. But it's also sad because that was the wrong thing to do. Because we know now, or we think we do, that the plague actually came from the fleas on the rats. So those cats and dogs, they probably would have attacked the rats and pushed them away, or at least limit the numbers. But they just didn't know at the time, sadly. And let me show you over here. We've got a radio station. So for those of you that live in the UK, you might recognize most of those stations. Scala, Absolute, Planet Rock, Kiss, Magic, Jazz FM, Hit Radio, Kerrang. I've never listened to Kerrang. You know, when you do a radio recording, you want a clear background. You don't want any background noises. And apparently, some of the recordings turned up to have some kind of kids' voices in the background, like kids moaning or something, which was really odd. And some claim that it might be the ghost of the kids that would have been buried here, because this lovely little square, Golden Square, it was a plague pit. So a lot of bodies would have been buried here. Because at the time when the plague came to a borough or a neighborhood, the council would, what they'll do, that's very sad as well, they'll lock you in. So if mummy started to have a few bobos from the plague, they'll lock the full family in. They'll put a red cross on the door. The parish would bring you food and stuff, but they were basically locking in the healthy with the sick. So for the kids and the husband, it was pretty much a death warrant, you know. And every week or so, they'll come with a cart and they'll shout, "Bring out your dead, bring out your dead." And then they'll bury them very quickly into those improvised burial grounds because they just didn't have time, you know, they just had so many dead. Sometimes when you see movies and stuff, it looks like they're just throwing those bodies into those pits. No, they still managed to put them facing up and give them some form of a decent burial. But they did what they could. And it's quite sad because often the rest of the family was still locked in. So very often they didn't even know where their loved ones had been buried. So it was the case for that little ground over here, a plague pit. Very often the plague pits are still little green today because people were scared to build on them. People were scared to have their foundations, to dig their foundations into those soil. They thought the plague could come back to them. And this one was not only a plague pit, but it was also a pest house. The pest houses, they were actually more common on the continent. I think we had only 5 in London, but we've got very few records of how they were kept and financed and all that. But they were basically isolation homes. They were more popular on the continent, and we know now it's probably what should have been done, you know, isolate the sick into those little homes to not contaminate the rest of their families. And but yeah, we don't really know much about how it worked and everything. So pest house for pestilence, of course. It's basically a plague in French. Now, some of you might think of a little nursery rhyme. Let me show you the lyrics. You might know the little ring a roses, a pocket full of posies, a tissue, we all fall down. what does it mean? You know, according to some, absolutely nothing. It's just nonsense. But according to some historians, it actually refers to the plague. A pocket full of posies that would have been those little rose petals they would keep because they believed in the miasma theory so much that they tried to keep some sweet smelling petals or perfume or something to cover the smell, and they were actually encouraged to smoke a lot of tobacco as well. Or rosemary. The price of rosemary rocketed up at the time because they wanted to put it in a tissue by their nose. So a tissue would refer to the sneezing of the plague, and we all fall down, we all dying. Again, we probably will never know, but I think it probably refers to the plague. Talking about the rosemary, see the plague doctors. The plague doctors, by the way, they were not actually doctors. Did you sing it at school? Cool. Yeah, they were not actually doctors. The doctors, they were smart enough to run away. They were outside of town. They did not want to stay. But those, this outfit, that actually kind of helped. Those long beaks, they were to store some herbs like rosemary to cover the smell. And they had these long coats that were coated with materials that actually probably did have some kind of an impact because the fleas couldn't come, you know. So they probably actually had an effect on the plague doctor to protect them. Anyway, let's go down towards the beautiful Regent Street. So we'll take a little look at the light. Yes, Rose, there actually are a lot of nursery rhymes that have some, or potentially have, some dark origins. And let's go and see the Christmas lights. By the way, about the Christmas lights, I wanted to tell you all, be careful what you look at on the internet. There are so many fake, so many AI images that are that just don't exist, and it's getting so bad, especially on Facebook. They're just AI, and a lot of people don't realize. I've started to get some customers that come and ask me about stuff that don't exist at all, and we've been bombarded by a lot of images of fake light on Regent Street. You know, you usually have some kind of an angel or a man flying. Well, on the AI images, they put a lady with a dress, and it's looking amazing, but I'm just a bit worried that people might be disappointed when they actually come to London, because it's very different from those fake images you see on Facebook. It's not only about the Christmas light. I mean, there are a lot of fake images of London in general. Especially the other day when we had a bit of snow, like 10 minutes, then there were a lot of fake AI pictures of snowy London everywhere. And then I had some customers coming and ask me about the snow. It's getting crazy, the AI, especially on Facebook. It should be regulated, you know. But hey ho, I think the world is changing too quick for the politics, or the technology is going too quick for the politics. Anyway, so those are the real Christmas lights. So those are the ones that do exist. So if you've seen any of the fake ones online, they are fake. I actually prefer the real ones, to be honest. But they have been around for a while. They use the same pretty much everywhere, every year. So Regent Street, it is of course named after the Prince Regent. So that's George IV when his dad became unwell mentally. They should specify when it's fake down. You know what? I agree. And the thing is, when you see those images, I spot them. I mean, I don't know. Maybe because I used to work as a photographer, but I spot them very quickly. But when you look at the comments, there are a lot of people that are fooled. A lot of people that are like, "Oh, amazing! Oh, that's so beautiful! Oh, that's so sweet." I don't know. I think some of those comments might be robots anyway. They might be bots, but still, it breaks my heart to think that people believe in, you know. And some of those images are like, for example, you'll see pictures of the royal kids, you know, little George and Charlotte. Or for example, you'd have a picture of the little George with some kind of a fancy jacket on which he's got medals. And people would comment, why does he have any medals? What did the kids do to get those medals? It doesn't, it's just AI. So people then are having a go at the royal family for stuff they didn't do. It's crazy, the world is going crazy. Leonie usually calls you out on the fake. Yeah, well, good. Yeah, there are a lot of them, sadly. And it's even, it's just the beginning. It's gonna get better and better. And yeah. It has to be regulated. There's no regulation at the moment. It's just madness. Anyway, let me show you another quick look at Regent Street before we go. And let's cross over to see Piccadilly Circus. So those are the famous big screens. Probably some of the most expensive advertising in London. They are always on. They are never. I think the last time they were officially turned off, that was for Winston Churchill funerals. Even with the Queen, they didn't turn them off. We had a lovely portrait of the Queen. Well, two. One of a young Queen Elizabeth and one of an older Queen Elizabeth. Piccadilly Circus, by the way, the name comes from a guide called Robert Baker that used to produce those Piccadilles. If you don't know what they are, let me show you a picture. So this is a Piccadilly. They're also known as underpropas. There were those interesting neck collars that they had in the 17th century. And Robert used to produce those beautiful Piccadilles, and he had a mansion here, so people called it Piccadilly Hall. And over the years it became Piccadilly. And circus, because it used to be a roundabout, so circle in Latin. And in the middle it's the Shaftesbury Monument, the fountain. Everyone calls it Eros. It's not actually Eros, it's Anteros, the god of unrequited love, as opposed to the loved one. It might look a little bit familiar because the little Anteros has inspired the logo of the Evening Standard. So if it looks familiar, it's because of the Evening Standard. It used to be placed the other way around. It used to face Shaftesbury Avenue, but I think they've removed it to clean it and they put it back the wrong way around. Anyway, let's go down Piccadilly, because this music might be copyrighted. I don't want to have any copyright issues. And Lord Shaftesbury, he was a politician and a philanthropist in the 19th century. He was taking a lot of consideration into child labor. You know, we probably spoke about that in some of my tours in the past. Kids were doing very dangerous jobs in Victorian times, like cleaning chimneys and stuff. So he was trying to reduce the number of hours they could work and the dangerosity of the jobs they could do. Let me show you this. We'll come back here on my Christmas light tour next week. Let me just give you a good angle for screenshots with the underground and the light. And we've got a little police telephone station. So before that, everyone had a telephone. You had those little police phone box. So if you spotted anything suspicious, you could open this to call the police station. We're heading to the police station now, Vine Street Police Station. And if you were a police officer on patrol as well, you could open this to grab the phone and call the station. So that was quite convenient. Let me check the time. Oh, we've got time. Because I wanted to try to get you to Fortnum Mason for the little characters to come out. So Piccadilly, the street would go, it goes all the way down to Hyde Park Corner. It's also a shopping street where you've got the beautiful Fortnum Mason. So we'll head down there as well. And today, I mean, this season, they've got my favorite decoration so far because it's very foxy and squirrely. They always have amazing deco, Fortnum Mason. Well, all the big department stores around here, they try to do their best, but Fortnum Mason always have great. Not only Christmas deco, any deco. It could be Easter, it could be Halloween, it could be any deco. They're usually very good. And this is the Dilly. That's a nice hotel. It used to be called the Piccadilly, but now it's just the Dilly. Sometimes I come here to pick up some customers for private tours. At the back, they used to have a reading room. I think it was called the St. James's Reading Rooms. That's where Charles Dickens did one of his last public readings. And there's a little church across the street here, so this is St. James's Piccadilly. It is from Sir Christopher Wren. It's actually quite rare in Westminster to have a Wren church. You have a lot of them in the City of London, like 50 of them, but in Westminster they are a little bit rarer. Oops. Just going to show you my face for a sec because we're going through a skinny tunnel. I don't like to put the camera right into people's face. Are the same decorations used every year? Pauline is asking.
Yeah.
To be precise, yes. For the street deco, there are a lot of. Let me show you Vine Street. We've got time. There are a lot of lights that have been, like the angels on the street. They've been here for many years. The shops and stuff, they often change them every year. But the one by the council, they've been around many years. And they turned them off a little bit earlier than they used to as well, because of ecology, really. I think that's why I put the tour at 9 and not 10, because I think they turned them off at 11 now. It used to be a bit later. It used to be a midnight at least, or maybe even 1. Anyway, this used to be the site of a police station. We are now on Vine Street. Let me show you. So that's what it used to look like. That was a police station for a long time, and that's where the Marquis would have come to accuse Oscar Wilde of sodomy and all that. So there's quite a few big cases that started here. And the police station, would you believe, it is haunted. And Linda, that's interesting. Well, you know what? Linda is asking, is there any controversy about the angels being a religious thing? Well, technically, I'm not sure they are angels as such. They are human men. But it's not that controversial in England. Try to do that in France, you'll see. France has taken the secularity of the country very seriously. In France, you're not allowed to have a nativity, for example, in the public space anymore, like in a shopping center and stuff. Here, it's not, well, at least politically on a bigger level, it's not so much of an issue. Maybe people might argue between them, but yeah, it's not bothering anyone. Anyway, the ghost of the police station. At the beginning of the 19th century, we had sadly a gentleman, a police officer in the station. We don't know why he did what he did, but he managed to lock himself into an office, and he managed to use his own belt to strangle himself. So very sad event. We don't know what led to his decision, but apparently he came back. After the through the Second World War, sorry, I'll just show you my face again. Through the Second World War, the police station became the Alien Registry Office. So it was basically for foreigners to register. Yeah, when I say alien, I mean foreigners, not people from Mars, because we don't get them to register quite yet. But you know, after the First World War, people were a bit worried, of course, of foreigners. So to make sure you were not a spy or anything through the Second World War, if you were from, I don't know, Germany, Austria, wherever it might be, or anywhere really, you'd have to come and register there, just to let them know that you are in the UK and stuff. And through that time, apparently there are quite a few people inside of the building that had sightings of a man. One sighting was even very precise. They noted that he was wearing an old police officer uniform. So, you know, it's quite interesting when you have different people that are completely unaware of the story, and that end up with the same sighting. So when they finally destroyed the police station, no one saw the ghost anymore. Exactly, Laurie. They could be drag queens. Yeah, I don't think that those angels. I don't think they look very religious, to be honest. Anyway, quick stop here just to show you some of our last gas lamps in London. We used to have very many of them, but sadly Westminster Council has been swapping them for electricity. Officially it's for the planet, but it's not true, because the carbon footprint of changing them is actually greater than just leaving them. But those two have survived. So, you know, when you think of London, you probably think about a tiny little alleyway with a bit of fog and a gas lamp. So we're very lucky to still have those. The building used to be a home for Singleton. You had some politicians and stuff living inside. But yeah, I hope they stay. I don't think I know any other survivors in Westminster now. There were a few until a few years ago, but they've all been swapped. There's a company that tried to protect them. They're called the London Gasketeer. They are all over social media and stuff. They're trying to fight to keep the last remaining few. Now, this is the beautiful Fortnum Mason. And we've got exactly 10 minutes before the two little characters should come out. It worked an hour ago. I was here at 8, so it should work. It was 2 minutes delayed at 8. So let's go and take a look at the deco, and then we'll step back. We'll come back here to see if we can see the little character. So that's William Fortnum and Hugh Mason coming to salute one another by the little clock there.
Exactly.
Right above the name, Fortnum Mason, you see a statue. It might look a bit familiar. It's from Lynn Chadwick. We have seen one with from the same artist in Canary Wharf, in my Dark Tales of the Doctor. And we'll come back in a moment to see the little characters coming out of here. But for now, let's go and see the window displays. They always have very interesting ones. So Fortnum Mason, they have a royal warrant, so they have been supplying for the royal family for a while. They have a long history of royal connection, and the story really started because of William Fortnum. He used to work for Queen Anne. So she's the queen that we mentioned at the beginning of the tour, you know, the queen that probably had a couple of lesbian relationships. And at the palace, whenever the queen had a dinner, they would always start a new candle on the table. I'm very careful with my pronunciation when I say candles, because I do some food tours sometimes inside, and once I had a lady, so I said they'll put new candles on the table, and after the story she was like, can I double check something with you? Did you just say they were putting condoms on the table? So for the full story, she believed I was talking about condoms. So no, I'm talking about candles, lights, you know, candlesticks. So every time they'll have a new dinner, I love the fox. They'll place some new candles on the dinner table. So after every single dinner, some candles were wasted. They were half burned. And William Fortnum decided to ask the queen if he could sell those candles, those half-burned candles. And Queen Anne said, yes, sure, do what you need to do, you know. And that was a success. He made a lot of money. Because, of course, everyone wanted those candles from the queen's table, really. So he made so much money that he decided to ask his friend and landlord, Hugh Mason, if they wanted to open a shop together. So that's what they did, and they kept working for the queen. So that's how the long royal connection started between the shop and the royal family. They still have a royal warrant today. So to have a royal warrant, you'd have to be supplying Buckingham Palace for at least 5 years out of the last 7. And the monarch themselves would have had to have given, this is my favorite, the squirrels. The monarch has to give their agreement. So they have to approve for the company to have a warrant. And there was a little ghost story here at Fortnum Mason. Not so much in the store, but in front of the store. Oops, sorry, I just hit the glass. Yes, they're my squirrels. We should write a letter to the shop, and they should give them to me after January. And oh, this one is cute as well up there, with his little scarf. So yeah, there was a very interesting story in the 60s. There was a journalist called Nancy Spain. Some of you might remember her. She was also a writer. She was a bit butchy. She was a lesbian, but quite butchy. She was actually, some people said she had the worst style of any ladies on British television. She's mainly remembered now because she died in a plane crash. She was, I didn't know, I just read a bit more about her today. She was the great niece of Mrs. Beaton. You know Mrs. Beaton from the cookbooks? We've seen Mrs. Beaton's grave in West Norwood Cemetery. So she was her great niece. And apparently one day she was on her way to a meeting somewhere. She's just out of Fortnum Mason here. She wanted to jump into a black cab, but there was a lady, an old lady with red hair, trying to get out of the cab. I think this guy has just been flashed by a camera. I've just seen a flash. Anyway, so they, a speed camera, I mean. So the shop, the cab was just outside of the shop. This older lady with red hair is paying her fare, but she's taking forever, looking into her wallet, and she cannot find the change. And eventually Nancy Spain had enough. She was in a rush, she had to get in the cab, so she paid for the lady. And sorry. And then when she got in the cab driver said to her, "You shouldn't have done that. This is the old lady C. She could buy you and I together." And some people are in a good mood. She didn't think much of it. But apparently, the next day she went for dinner at her mum's, and she told her about what happened in the cab with the old lady C. And then her mother got the newspaper out. It was dated from 3 days earlier, and it stated that the old lady C had died in a fire. Now, either they saw a look-alike, either they saw a ghost. Who knows? Hi, Kurt. To be honest, I still don't know who they referred to as the old Lady C in the 60s. Because today when we talk about Lady C, we usually talk about Lady Colin Campbell. You know what, I'm gonna go in between. I'm gonna stand here, it's gonna be a better angle for the little characters. So yeah, Lady Colin Campbell, she's very much still alive. I like her. She's, if you don't know who she is, she's a royal commentator. She's a lady that was actually born, when she was first born, her gender was not quite clear. So they actually decided to raise her as a boy because it was the stronger sex at the time. And then they realized that she was female. Anyway, it's not her because she's very much still alive. So I don't know who they called the old Lady C in the 60s. It's a different Lady C, but I have yet to find out. Right, it is 2 minutes, so we should have 2 minutes before our little characters come. So on the hour, you've got Fortnum Mason popping out by the clock there. They salute one another, and then they go back in. And if it works, it worked an hour ago, so it should work. But we still have 3 minutes. Now, after the little characters, that's gonna be the end of the tour. So do let me know in the chat if you have any questions before we go. Yeah, it's an advent calendar. Yeah, I didn't even mention. But you know what? It took me months before to realize. I don't know how many years they've had it on, but I only realized that's when I was on Hego, so maybe 4 years ago, that it was an advent calendar, because someone told me. I had not seen it. Let me show you again. I'll show you. So every window is like a number, so any of the days before Christmas, really. It's quite well done, but personally I didn't get it. I might not have the most logical or the most common logic, maybe. Oh, okay, Neil. So we should have 2 minutes to go. So they have a little food court in the basement if you, when you come to London, if you want to try some very local stuff like Scotch eggs. Allegedly, the Scotch egg has been invented here. Although it might, there was probably a guy in Whitby that used to do eggs covered in fish paste, and his name was Scott's. So it might have started as a Scott's egg with fish instead of sausages. But the recipe we have today was created here in, I think, 1737 in Fortnum Mason. Yeah, so the windows, the numbers lit up. What day is today? Is it the 11th or the 12th? Well, we should be able to tell. I think it's 11 because the 11 is lit up. And where is the 12? The 12 is not, you see. Or is it the 12th today? Let me check. No, I think we are the 11 today. That sounds horrendous. Do you mean the Scots egg with the fish paste? Maybe. Well, I'd like to try. Why not? They probably still do it in Whitby. 11, yeah, cool. So we are all correct. The 11 is lit up and the 12 is not quite yet. Cool. What time is it? It should be soon because it's 2 minutes past 10. I think the last one is 10, but we'll see. If they don't come out, the last one might have been 9. Here we go. Yes, Fortnum Mason is of course known for their Christmas hampers and their hampers to take picnics, to go, for example, to Ascot's and stuff. So the Scotch egg was a very good snack food to take away in a hamper to Ascot's or anywhere west, really. I mean, you could go east as well, but because at the time we were on the west, the outskirts on the west of London. But you are allowed to take them east. And here they come. Can zoom in a bit if you'd like. And that's it, they're going back in. We should try to go to Berkeley Square to see the Annabelle's Deco as well. Anyway, let me show you the last, the other side, the windows on the other side. See, they've knocked down the building next door. They've knocked down quite a few buildings on Piccadilly in the last few months. Some of them, they're keeping the facade, but they've knocked down the back. This one, they've not even kept the facade. They've just, well, unless there's a facade hidden behind it, maybe. But I think they've knocked down everything. Anyway, let me show you those window displays as well. I prefer the one on the front. They've put foxes on their biscuit tin as well. I've got this one. One of the company I work for gave us some of those well, I've eaten them already. But we had a little Christmas lunch yesterday, and they got me some of those biscuits. Anyway, that's gonna be the end of the tour. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions about anything before we go. If not, thank you very much for coming today. It's always a pleasure to have you on board. If any of you were completely new to me, you might want to subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on the fun next time. And if you want to make sure you don't miss the live, the best is to subscribe and then hit the little notify me for everything thing. This way you get a notification when I go live. And if you want to see a bit more of Christmas in London, next Monday we'll go and see the Christmas slide. So we'll do a proper Christmas tour about all the funky history of Christmas traditions. Thanks ever so much, Pauline. That's very, very much appreciated. It is really thanks to your generosity, whether it is here on YouTube or on Buy Me a Coffee or on PayPal. It is thanks to your donations that I can keep doing more tours and more research and all that. Laurie, they thought I was saying condoms, because I said, oh yeah, you know, they were wasting all those half-used condoms. So he asked to collect the condoms. And I told the full story. And then she was like, did you just say they were reusing the condoms? So yeah. And that was funny because I could see she was a bit shy before to ask, you know. But yeah, so that's how I realized I should be very careful with my pronunciation. Anyway, thank you guys for coming. Hopefully I'll see some of you on Monday. If not, keep an eye on my channel. I'll be scheduling some more in the next few days. And I'll see you soon. Have a great evening, a great morning, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world. And if you drop me a little tip on PayPal or buy me a coffee, I know I cannot thank you personally in the chat, but make sure you know you very, very much appreciate it. Bye-bye. Have a good one.